it's hard to sell while you're doing the work. So how'd you had to get the second job, then the third job. How did you start to grow?
Yeah, it was a lot of late nights. It was 7 days a week. It was just, never giving up, just working nonstop. It's a hunger that you have in your belly. When I worked for the framing carpenter that I worked for, I saw what he was doing, and I looked at this guy and I thought, I want to be this guy. I mean, I wanted it so bad, I almost shook.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop.
Alan, we're back, and here we go. The Small Business Safari continues to march up the hill on its way to that successful mountaintop we're all trying to get to. And it's good to be back just a week later. We're back at it, doing it again.
I know.
Feels like it's been weeks, Alan. And for the first time ever, you're the one who was gone.
I know. But I had an event. It wasn't just gallivanting around the world like you do.
Where was the event?
It was in Wilmington, North Carolina, but it was a wedding. I mean, it was a noble thing I did.
Oh,
as opposed to Vegas, Acapulco, everything else that you do.
Yeah, I just got done booking some more.
Napa.
Yep.
We did swing through Charleston.
Yeah.
One of my favorite food cities.
Nice. What'd you have there? Where'd you go?
Lots of shrimp and grits. I don't even want to tell you my favorite place on the air because
Okay.
I just want it to stay local.
All right. Well, thanks for, I guess, again, we won't be getting another sponsor here.
That's right.
But let's get after it. We've gotten some great feedback on the podcast before we introduce our guest. Had a person reach out to me through LinkedIn and said, Chris, I've been following your podcasts. Like all the information you're sharing with everybody. You've given me the courage. I am retiring from the U.S. Air Force, and I'm going to start my own business. I had entertained getting into other companies, but I decided I'm going to do my own. And thank you for being the inspiration and keep doing what you're doing on the podcast.
That's unbelievable. What's his first name? Let's give him a shout out.
All right. Now you're putting me on a spot. I have to look him up again. I think his name was Mark.
Well, thank you for your service, first of all, while Chris is looking you up.
Yep. I do. You know what? I wasn't very prepared, but I will be prepared in just a minute.
Did I fluster you?
You did. I'm off my game, and I haven't even got to introduce Andy yet. I mean, come on, man.
That's really cool, though. I love the way the listeners reach out.
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
I got another voicemail this morning from another guy that I'm going to call back tomorrow because he wanted to kick some ideas around based on what he had heard on the podcast. So I have it. It's not Mark. It is Matt Denton.
Well, Matt, thanks for being a listener, and thanks again for your service.
Yep. Matt, I'm sorry I didn't have
and I hope Matt keeps us posted. I mean, he's talking about writing a business plan.
Yep. He's doing it all. So I do hope he keeps us posted.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah. So keep it up out there. Keep doing the thing. Keep listening. Keep following. Keep subscribing. I found out that on Spotify, our numbers are going up, believe it or not, because I thought Apple was the only place that people went to listen to podcasts. But no, Spotify is starting to pick up for us. So we appreciate you. We appreciate this. And let's go get started and get some more gold nuggets. Today, we have Andy Apter, who is the NARI president. If you've been following the podcasts, you know that I'm a member of NARI here in Atlanta. NARI is the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. But what I've really enjoyed about my time with this group, and you've heard me talk about it, is that I get to meet so many cool people who know how to run businesses, and we get to bounce ideas off each other. And we know we're doing right by people when we're out there being contractors in the world, and we're doing the right things as opposed to a lot of people doing the wrong things. So Andy is a remodeler in the D.C. area. I'm going to have him tell me exactly what city he's in a minute. But he has also stepped up, and he's volunteering. This is a volunteer role, not getting paid for it, to be the president of the entire North American National Association of the Remodeling
That's
Industry.
a big job.
I think so.
Especially with people like you. I'm sure he's had to write you up or sanction you a couple of times.
He did come personally visit us in Georgia just because he had heard about the loudmouths in Georgia. Believe it or not, I was only one of many in our group. But we're pretty active, and that just shows our passion. But Andy, Apter Remodeling, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of loudmouths in that room. You're bored, but I enjoyed it very much. It was a great visit.
That's great. Andy, so before we get started, we asked for bios and headshots from everybody, and Andy writes back his bio, and it starts off with born in Germany. I'm like, whoa. So you're a German.
I became an American citizen when I was in third grade, but I was a German before that. And I didn't realize what a big deal it was until I came back to the class after becoming a citizen. And my teacher promptly had me go in front of the class, explain what happened, a lot of which I didn't understand and know at that young. But yeah, I became a citizen when I was in third grade.
That's really cool. Do you have a lot of
Yeah.
family back there still?
I do. I have cousins and aunts and uncles still in Germany, in the south western part of Germany, near Frankfurt.
Do you speak German?
Ja, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Beautiful. If
So
I even
good.
understood, that was
He
good.
said I speak a little German.
Oh, thank you
Yeah.
for translating for me, Alan. I'm so happy we did that. So when you obviously came with your parents, moved over here, is that how you got here?
So my mother remarried, and she remarried to a guy that came to Germany. He was studying to be a dentist. And before he left, he was stationed in Germany. He was in the army. And before he left, his mother said, "Whatever you do when you're over there, don't marry a German gal." And what did he do? He met my mother and married my mother. Told my mother, a lot of GIs probably told this story. I'm going to go back to America, and I'm going to send you to America. I'm going to have a plane ticket for you and your son to come to America. And he left, but he was there when we got to the airport in America, so he held up his end of the bargain.
Oh, cool. Wow, look at that. All right, so are you always been from the DC area, and or did you end up moving towards there?
I lived in Maryland most of my life. Once I came to the United States, and I've lived in Maryland, and right now I'm in Annapolis, Maryland, which is about 20 minutes outside of DC
Gotcha.
on the Chesapeake Bay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful area. And if you can't see this in the podcast, but he's coming to us live from his house, and it's beautiful. But I don't think that looks like Maryland to me. So we might.
This is Sarasota, Florida. I have another home in Sarasota, Florida.
Beautiful. So let's get into the how you got into the remodeling business. Is it something you grew up into? Is it something that somebody inspired you to do, or are you doing something completely different? How'd you get into it?
You know, it was funny because growing up, my dad and we built a playhouse outside one time, and we were, putting it together, and you would think, wow, and once I put something like that together, I'd have an interest in it, and I really didn't. But I think I kind of fell into it. I was between high school and college. Well, in between high school, I worked construction. And then when I went to college, when I came back from college, I worked construction. And I had this brilliant idea with my dad that I told my dad that I want to take a year off and, work construction. And my dad said, "Well, where are you going to live?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to live here." He said, "No, you're not." So I ended up kind of falling into it. I took to it really quickly. I was really lucky that I apprenticed under a master framer, probably to this day, the best framer I've ever seen. And I was the grunt that was carrying the lumber and learning on site. The carpenter I worked for didn't want to teach me because he knew if I learned, I'd leave. And one thing I felt every day at the end of the day, carrying all that lumber, was that I knew that house wouldn't be there if I didn't carry the lumber. So I had like ownership of the position and respect for it. I apprenticed for maybe 2 years. After 2 years, I told my boss I was cleaning offices at night for a attorney who incorporated me because I knew I wanted to go into business for myself. And I said to my boss, I said, I got this job coming up, putting a hip roof on a flat roof gas station. And I think I'm going to go into business for myself. And he said, "Hey, really?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Hey, good for you. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back." So that's all I needed to hear. And I never came back. I've been doing this for 42 years now.
Holy cow.
What did your dad want you to do?
My dad, being a professional, my dad is a retired dentist. And my mother and father both wanted education from me. They felt like college was the way to go. And part of the thing of where you're going to live when you take a year off, my dad was trying to scare me back into going to college because he thought that was best for me. But I grew up in a white collar family. My dad provided really well for our family, and I knew that I wanted the same. And I saw the opportunities early on. I saw it in the construction field. I've always been a really good salesman, and I've been a good craftsman, and I was able to hire a lot of good employees, and I've had a very good career for, like I said, over 40 years.
Is that a rare thing to be a great craftsman and a great salesman all at the same time?
I think so. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, the business part of it came later for me. There's a saying, the school of hard knocks. I've paid a lot of prices for my mistakes and for what I didn't know. And that's one of the things I really like about NARI is the education that you get, the certifications you get, the training you get, and the ability that you have a network and a place to learn. And I wish I had had that when I started off, because it would have saved a lot of headaches. But better late than never, right?
Yeah. No, well, you've obviously did well. You started off, you had one job. You say, hey, I'm going to go start my own business with one job. But you're like, I'm going to fall back on my skills of sales. But at the time, you were a crew of one, maybe had another person. It's hard to sell while you're doing the work. So how'd you had to get the second job and the third job. How did you start to grow?
Yeah, it was a lot of late nights. It was 7 days a week. It was just, never giving up, just working nonstop. It's a hunger that you have in your belly. When I worked for the framing carpenter that I worked for, I saw what he was doing. And I looked at this guy and I thought, I want to be this guy. I mean, I wanted it so bad. I almost shook, because I just knew that I could fill that role. I knew that I could do that. And I loved carpentry. I loved what I was doing. And ironically, now being a remodeling contractor, which I've been exclusively doing for the past 25 years, having that carpentry background ironically came as a great skill set, because that's probably the heart of the home and the bones of the home, and one of the most important things, and everything else revolves around the carpentry. So if I had have gotten a really good education in electric or in plumbing or something else, it wouldn't have served me as well as the carpentry did. So part of that I probably fell into, and the other was, again, just the hunger and the drive to learn and to succeed.
That's I mean, to know that at 19, 20 years old and to still be in the same business. Clearly the two of us can't say that we did the same thing, because we've been all over the board trying a lot of different things, and a lot of people have. And then we talk about that. You got to build your skill set. You got to build your toolbox. You got to put those skills in that toolbox. And obviously I started my business a lot later in life, but you stayed with it. You stuck with it. You started to grow. When did you start to bring on your first employees, and how old were you then?
No, it was pretty quick. Probably within a year, the first year. Actually, believe it or not, I still have one of those first employees with me to this day.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in the not believing. I'm doing Ripley's. No way. Oh my gosh. I mean, for as much turnover as we have in this business, which is really difficult, and you know that, you still have your very first employee.
Yeah. I used to pick him up from his house when we started, because he didn't have a car, and he answered an ad in the newspaper for a carpenter's helper, and a great skilled craftsman today. And I've taught him everything he knows, I'd like to say.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Well, testament to you and your demeanor, you can tell in the way you take care of people. So as you were growing, you started to add people. When did you start to get off the tools?
Do you have what it takes to start your own business? Are you tired of the 9-to-5 corporate job and ready to make that leap into entrepreneurship? You need to check out From the Zoo to the Wild, the book by successful entrepreneur Chris Lalvani. This book is a unique perspective on the journey into the wild world of home services and delivering excellence in service while working in customers' homes. Lalvani shares his path to success in this industry, including proven customer relationship strategies, award-winning customer experience processes, and a unique approach to training a team of service technicians to perform at the highest levels. Whether you're a small business trying to scale or a franchise operation, From the Zoo to the Wild will give you the mindset, habits, leadership style, and customer-oriented processes to succeed as a small business owner in the world of home services. So if you're ready to take control of your future, get a copy of From the Zoo to the Wild today, available on Amazon.
Probably in the mid 90s. I got to the point where it was more work to manage the business. Also, I ended up building an office for myself. I ended up buying a piece of property and putting a building on it and working out of it. So I retired my pouch and my hammer, and because it was a full-time job. The business end is definitely a full-time job. It was a full-time job keeping the books, full-time job going out and selling the business, full-time job managing the business, managing the customers. As you know, you wear a lot of hats in this business, and the one thing you don't want to do is get too many hats where you can't function. And I realized that I wasn't doing the carpentry well anymore. I wasn't managing that part of it, so it almost came natural, that transition, because it got to the point in my career where it needed to be done, and I did it. It's like, like when I started, it was something you just did.
So as you grow in a business, we always talk about this. You always go through transitions. So for you, it was putting down the pouch and then starting to manage the business. As you go through those different periods and you've started to grow, you went from a framing contractor to a remodeler. What would you say was the hardest transition for you to make throughout these 42 years?
The bookkeeping end of it for me. Having a good set of books, understanding my financial statement, checking the financial statement on a monthly or every 2 weeks, knowing something that was going to go awry before it would go awry, having that skill set from the numbers. That was the hardest part for me.
Was the business side just all learned on the job as you were going, or did you have somebody in your ear guiding you a little bit?
No, it's funny. Along the way in my life, I've had mentors, and I never even realized they were mentors until they were gone. Until later in my career, I thought, this guy used to talk to me and used to give me advice, and I didn't even realize it was advice when he was doing it for me. At one point, I had another builder that was a friend of mine. I was on a commercial project at the time, and I wasn't getting paid by the GC. And I was just having a casual conversation with this other builder friend of mine, and he says, "Oh my God, those guys are, they're bad news." He said, "How much do they owe you right now?" And I told him. He reaches into his desk, he brings out this big checkbook, he writes a check, hands it over the desk to me, and he goes, "Here you go." I said, "What's this?" He goes, "Well, this is just until the guy pays you back." And I said, "Well, he may not pay me back for a while." He says, "You're good for it. Don't worry about it." I mean, that blew me away. I mean, it was a pretty good sized check too at the time. I think it was a commercial trim project, and I think I had 20 carpenters on that job, working on that job. It was a sport and racket club, and we were installing cherry wainscot, cherry crown, cherry doors, cherry windows. It was a high-end millwork project. And I was in over my head because
you must have been freaking out when that guy wasn't paying you.
Yeah, of course I was freaking out because, the backside of the story is I did have a line of credit, and I tapped into the line of credit, and I didn't have anything left on the credit. And this was a big DC contractor, and they paid their people 90, 120 days out. That's just the way it worked. And I didn't know that going in. And here's this guy who's my mentor, who believes in me and trusts in me, gives me a check sight unseen. I mean, it tells me more of what he thought about me than I understood of how he felt about me at the time. And of course, I paid him back. The contractor did make good with me on the end. The GC made good with me on the end. At that time, I was a subcontractor, and again, these people come in and out of your lives and you don't realize it and until they're gone most of the time of how important they are, a big piece.
Is your role in NARI your way of paying it forward?
It's it's funny that you asked me that. Yeah, it is. I always felt a desire in my heart to do something good, to do something right for my industry because I believe in it, and I feel like there's a lack of professionals in it, and I want to give to the industry. And when I signed on before I became president, I was secretary. It's a 5-year term to go through the process of being an officer in NARI. When I signed on, I always thought, what am I going to do when I become president? What am I going to do? What's my legacy? What am I going to do? But the irony is, what I did when I was treasurer made a big difference. What I did when I was secretary made a big difference. What I did when I was president-elect. So there is nothing that I have to wake up in the morning and say, well, this is my goal. This is what I have to do. I've already done so much for the industry and for NARI and continue to do that. And it's just natural when you're in that leadership role, when you need to step up and when you need to make the right call and the right decision, that you do it. And so I'm grateful that I'm in this position, and I do feel like I'm making a difference. It may be a lot of small differences. It may not be different to someone else, but it's different to me. So it's been very rewarding and very fulfilling.
I have to say it's NARI as an organization is nationwide. Here in Atlanta, we've got a very strong chapter.
Apparently an obnoxious chapter.
Obnoxious and loud, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't forget loud. Very loud.
I wonder who's the loudest.
I believe it or not, I am not always the loudest. There is well, we've met one of the louder ones, the one who calls us seasoned. Yes. We're not old, we're seasoned.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yes, you do. Amanda has been listening to the podcast. I'm going to tell her that we give her a shout out here. But again, that's when I was asked to come in and help. This is how I got into it. I was attending the NARI events, and I'm running my business. And selfishly, I'm trying to run my business, and NARI is supposed to be giving me things. I'm not supposed to be giving them things. Back to you asking if Andy was paying it forward. They stuck me in. And here's how we did it. Mark Gailey.
You were there to take.
I was taking, man. And Mark said, Chris, can you help me out with our finances? And I got in there and started digging in. And they were atrocious. The books were horrible. We were losing money as an organization. We were digging into our reserves. And so I started digging in. And he goes, well, I think you should be the head of the finance committee. And I was, well, no, I'm just here to fix the books. I got to get back to running my business. And then he goes, no, I think you should do it. So I did. So he asked and I did. And now I'm the vice president and on my way to becoming a president one day here. And it is. Andy said this, and I want to talk about that a little bit.
So you're after Andy's job?
Oh no, that national one. No,
just the local one.
Back to being. I got sucked into this, Alan. No, kidding. It's been great. No, it's been good. And then I tell you what, it's
sometimes reluctant leaders are the best ones.
Yeah. Well, I'm in now, and I really enjoy it. And we talk about being a loud, obnoxious group. I'm telling you, there are guys. Back to Andy's point about mentors. I mean, I can pick up the phone and ask a question. We had a great guy, and we've had him on our podcast too, Dan Weidman, where I went to his office. I said, hey, Dan, do you mind sitting down with me and my remodeling manager? Went there, spent 2 hours with us, opened up his book, showed us how he does everything in his business, which is completely different than mine, but yet very similar, right? Because it's still remodeling. So, Andy, as you worked your way into the NARI chapter and did things, did you find that the NARI people became some of your mentors that you said weren't really mentors at the time?
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but I myself and Joe Bowen founded our chapter. We're the inaugural members, and we put this chapter together. It's called the Chesapeake Bay chapter, and it was necessary because the only place in the DC metro area to go was to join the Washington chapter, and you'd have to go into Virginia, and traffic is crazy, and it was just very difficult and to attend meetings. And the only other chapter in Maryland is Mid-Maryland, which is about 40 minutes north. And so we founded this chapter. And I would say that Joe is a mentor of mine. He's also on the board right now, on the national board, and a great leader, smart guy. And it always amazes me how I continue to learn things. And Joe has taught me some things indirectly just with conversations and just with his experience level and his dedication and all the organizations he's been a member of. And he's just a great business person and a great leader. And I'm grateful to be working with him. I'm grateful to be with him on the board. And I'm grateful that he's, a national board member.
All right, we'll come back to narrate a little bit, but I got to get back into Andy. Andy, obviously, outside looking in, you're successful. 42 years, ran the business. You got a house in Annapolis. You got a house in Sarasota. We haven't gotten to some of the other things that he's very successful outside looking in. We'll get to that in a minute. Tease after we do a little advertising.
Okay.
And we'll punch that one.
All right.
Okay.
You got a secret.
I do. We'll come back with that secret. You'll hear it right after this. But now we're back. So as we're back, Andy, did you ever have a time where you said, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm not doing this, I'm giving up, this isn't working?
My wife is looking forward to that day because she is semi-retired. She's a dentist and she works about 6-7 days a month. And I've cut back quite a bit. But no, you know what? Every morning I get up and I look forward to the new challenges that lay ahead. I really like my customers. I like working with them. I like providing the service that we provide for them. And I must be doing it right, like you said, because I have a lot of repeat customers. I've worked for a lot of customers' kids. I've worked for their parents. And there's not a day that goes by. I have frustrations like anyone else. Sometimes I, tug on my hair, but no, I don't have those kind of days. And I think when that day comes up, I think it's going to be time for me to retire, to hang it up.
Yeah, I think that's obviously you're in the minority on this one. Well, number one, you've got hair.
He doesn't tug on it nearly as hard as we do.
Clearly, I've tugged on my hair way too much. But because I've gone through the ups and downs, and it's been tough. And I'm very proud that after 15 and a half years now, I've never missed payroll. Made it again this week, and but there are days, there's times at 3:30 in the morning, I'm like, what have I done? I left corporate America. I had that job and here I am running my business. But you said something that's what keeps me going and kept me going in the darker times, is that when I woke up, I was like, all right, there are problems to solve and nobody better out there to solve them than me. So I'd rather take my own problems and solve my own. And then, so that's a testament, again, back to your business. One of the things that we want to talk about in your business, you mentioned to me when we met in Atlanta, you grew to a pretty good size, and you're talking about scaling down a little bit. How big did you get? And then when did you decide to start narrowing down your focus to just, and I forget the name of the city you're working in primarily now, but if you could share that.
Annapolis.
You're all right. So you're right in Annapolis. I got you. Yeah. So how big did you get? And then as you're scaling it back, how did you start to narrow down your focus?
So at one point, I thought it was really cool when I had 35 or 38 employees. Looking back on it now, I would never want that again, ever. That was probably when you say the big, that was probably employee wise, the biggest I'd gotten. But probably the past 5 years is the biggest I've gotten, being small and lean and mean and having a small staff. And I'm a subcontractor based company, I would say, and we call our subcontractors trade partners, because I've got subcontractors that work with me for 20 years. As soon as they hit someone's house and open the door, the drop cloths go down, the dust partitions go up. I mean, they protect and to provide the service that I would provide and know what I would expect. But they're subcontractors. So from that standpoint, probably the greatest success has been probably the past 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's a great testament. Is that we talk about bigger is better, and currently I'm at 35 employees. And it's 35 employees I've got, believe it or not. And here we are talking about stuff in 2023. One of my employees came down with COVID and strep throat. And so she's my scheduler, and I got the hardest job in our company. And she actually texted me with, I'm sorry that this has happened. I'm like, Deborah, you just go get better. We'll be all right. We'll figure this out. But when you're big and outside looking in, it looks really successful, but there's a lot of plates that you're trying to spin, a lot of mouths you're trying to feed, a lot of families you're trying to provide for. And that, I actually thrive under that stress and pressure. I enjoy it, but it can wear you down after a while. So
Yeah,
now that
probably.
you mentioned to
Yeah.
me one thing, how geographically you started to disperse a little bit when you were that big. And again, I don't know Annapolis very well, and I said in the beginning the DC area because it just shows you how little I know about the area. Um, how spread out were you getting, and then you started to make a choice to bring it back? I want to hear about that one because I think a lot of people miss this one a lot.
Yeah. So at one point, several decades ago, I was a Beltway bandit. There's a Beltway that goes around the Washington area, and I would hit all exits on that Beltway, and I would spend more windshield time driving in a truck, going from sites, places. We would have to go get material somewhere, and it would be an hour expedition or an hour and a half. And I just realized there was a lot of waste. There was it being spread out over, and we were in Maryland and Virginia at the time. We were kind of spread between two states, never mind the counties that we covered. And so I kind of got to a point right before the 2000 that I reassessed my business and I took a look at it and I thought, this driving around is crazy. It's just a lot of wasted time. And so then I concentrated on Anne Arundel County, which is the county that Annapolis is in, and pretty well said no to anybody that would call outside of that area, which was scary because you're turning down work just because they're outside of your territory. And it paid off. I got a reputation locally. And the phone is still ringing away on a local payout that has worked out really well for us.
I think that's the point that I think a gold nugget in there is bigger isn't always better. Better is better. Warren Buffett said it best. And geographically, at one point, there are times where you just got to sit back. Sometimes we start digging so hard as business owners that we just don't take a breath and go, wait a minute. Do I really need to be a Beltway bandit? Do I need to really be driving 2 hours to pick up lumber because I can't find it anywhere else? Or maybe if I focus in one area, things will actually be better. And he just said, last 5 years have probably been some of my most successful. And that's actually by lasering in, moving in that focus as opposed to casting that wide brush, putting it in, getting that focus in. It's hard to do sometimes because your ego says, yeah, I'm working in 2 states. I'm working in 25 counties. I got 35 employees. Look at my big old revenue line. And you go, wait a minute, your sanity says what? Man, I'm tired. So that's been excellent. All right, I teased this, but we've got to talk about this. We have a good friend who's a Viper enthusiast, and one of the things that Andy shared outside of work that he likes to do is he runs and he's in the Dodge Viper Club and has, I believe, more than one, right?
I have 3.
There we go.
Different color for a different day, or what's the deal with 3 Vipers, Andy?
Different generations. The first one I had, the first generation, I actually have the first production year, which is 1992. They made 285 cars in 1992. I have car number 187, and it has about 7,000 miles on it. And then I have a Gen 3, which is a 2004 convertible. And that car has 505 horsepower, about 500 pounds of torque. And then I have a Gen 5, which is the last edition that they built. It's a 2014, and it's gunmetal gray, and it has 640 horsepower and 600 pounds of torque. And when I bought it, I took delivery of it. I bought it from Woodhouse Dodge, which at the time was the largest Viper dealer in Nebraska, of all places. And when I bought it on online. They shipped it to my house, took it out of the trailer. I took it for a ride, and I was doing about 90 miles an hour. And I remember I was shifting, I think, from second to third or third to fourth. I forgot which one. But I didn't realize I didn't have the traction control. And when I shifted into the next gear, I let out the clutch, and the rear end broke on me. And it was a mind-boggling experience at 90 miles an hour, almost losing control of the car. So now when I take the car out, I make sure the traction control feature is on.
Have you taken it on a track before?
I have, being a member of the Viper Club. Actually, in first week of September, I'm going to Colorado Springs to an event. I'm having the car shipped out there, and we go to different tracks. But I've driven on Charlotte International Speedway, Texas International Speedway. I've driven on Cody, which is Circuit of the Americas, which is an amazing track. It's a Formula One track. I've driven on Miller Motorsports Speedway. Um, I've been to Detroit, been to Chrysler Proving Grounds. I mean, being a member of the club is almost as much fun as owning the car, because when I go next month to Colorado Springs, there's going to be between 200 and 300 cars there. And Vegas International Speedway. I went to Vegas as well.
What's your top speed?
185 miles an hour in
Boy.
a
Hello.
Gen 2 a Gen 2 Sapphire Blue 2001 ACR Viper that was modified. It did 185 miles an hour in that car.
Yeah, I think what does this have to do with business? Well, listen, the business doesn't have to be defining you. You got to have some fun with what you do. Right, Alan? I mean, I'd like to take a few vacations.
Yeah, I'm not taking it to the extreme, but that's okay.
Right.
I get where you're going with this.
Right. So, but that's why just for a minute, I had no idea there was this Dodge Viper Club. So after Andy had mentioned this, and I knew some guys who've had it, and we have the Atlanta Motor Speedway here. So I looked this thing up, and I was like, man, what a pretty cool group to be part of, right? So I thought that was really interesting, super cool. Do you have any other interests outside of that hobby?
I've been a snow skier my whole life. Slowed down on that a little bit. But I guess if you call coming down to Sarasota to my house down here, that's my hobby. Relax time. I got a nice pool here. We're a bike ride, 10-minute bike ride to the beach. And it's a great spot here. So just enjoyed being here with my wife and having chill time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go back to business if we need to. Do you have an exit strategy in mind for what you're going to do? Not giving it away for people. Is it employee buy? Is it somebody strategically buy? Do you just hand the keys to somebody? Are you just going to just walk away? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so I've already talked with a broker about selling the business. It won't be an employee. And I talked with my accountant when I get serious about it, which I suspect will be in the next few years. I'll get a lawyer involved, and then I'm going to sell the business outright.
Nice. And I think that's a testament to building a business with processes. We've talked about that in our business in any business you start. It's okay to talk about the exit strategy in the beginning, in the business plan. It's okay to figure out what you're going to do, because what you're going to figure out what you can buy, or if you need to start your own, and then eventually what it's going to be worth. Because as a business owner, we all think it's worth usually 2 or 3 times more than it really is. And we also know the data says 82% of the businesses on Biz Buy Sell do not sell.
Sorry, I don't remember the author, but there's a book written by a small business construction owner, and it was called Sell Out or Walk Out. And it was just like basic explanation of selling a business. And it was a really good read. It was a thin book. It's not that thick, but it was I'm sorry, I don't remember the author. But it was a really good read on what it takes to sell a remodeling business. And one of the things that he said would be the ideal thing to sell it to an employee. I'm just not in that position. My employees are older like I am. And I think when I retire, they're not going to want a construction business.
Yeah, that's what I actually have just been approached by a local company asking me if I would buy out him as a handyman. He says, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting out." I'm like, "Really? Can you take me with you?" He said, "No, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe you'd be interested in it." So we'll see what happens with that. And I've really enjoyed. Thank you so much for coming on. But we can't let you go without, number one, let's go ahead and pitch your business. Apter Remodeling in Annapolis. You know anybody in Annapolis? That's where they got to go to get their remodeling done. I want to thank you again for your service with NARI and what you're doing as a president. We're going to push this out not only locally, but try to get this out to the NARI group as well, because I think this is a great testament to what this association can do. And thank you for that. But we've got to ask you a couple questions.
Please.
So you mentioned one book, but could you give us another book that you think our audience would really enjoy reading?
This is a fantastic book. I've personally bought it for a lot of friends. I just send it to them. I don't even tell them that it's coming. I go on Amazon I put their address in and send it to them. It's called Can't Hurt Me, and it's by David Goggins, and he's the first Navy SEAL who also was on Delta Force. And first off, it is a badass story about a badass man who grew up in the worst of circumstances and rose to the top. And what I like about the book is at the end of every chapter, he does a recap of what you can learn and what you can take away and use for business, use for your personal life, whatever you want. It's almost a dot to dots way of motivation and how to succeed. It's a fantastic book. I've read it several times. I've given it to my son. I've given it to my friends. Highly recommend that book.
Well, David appreciates that one. Wow, what a great testimony that you just send this book to people. So, again, maybe we can get him on.
Yeah, I think I need to read it.
Yeah, he's definitely going to read it.
He's an amazing human being. When you read what this guy went through, it'll blow your mind.
I've read some of it. Well, I follow him on social media, so I you're right. He's a motivating dude. I'm going to read that book too. I'm on. Thank you.
He also holds the world record for the most chin-ups.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What's the number?
I don't remember. I mean, I don't want to say it was a day's worth of chin-ups, but it was something ridiculous. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I saw the video of him doing it, but I don't know if he still holds the record, but at the time that I looked into it, he had the world's record for chin-ups.
Yep. Oh boy. Won't be going for that record.
No, there's a lot of other records we can shoot for, Chris.
All right. All right, let's keep going then.
Yeah.
Andy, as a remodeler, obviously you probably have some amazing spaces in your house, but what is the favorite feature of your home?
So the favorite feature in my home is at the house in Annapolis. It's a walkout basement with a swimming pool there, an outdoor fireplace, an outdoor kitchen that overlooks the Severn River. And then when you go into the house in the basement, there's a huge commercial-sized bar in the basement. Then there's a set of steps that go down to a pool room with a pool table. And then there are TV screens on the wall. And then there's a couple fireplaces down there. And then there's another huge screen on the wall and viewing area for football games and sporting events and movies.
So when you're in Florida, can we stay in your Annapolis home?
We could probably work something out.
I was going to say, yeah, can we go stay at that resort?
That's right.
I mean, that sounds like a rich Carlton resort, not a house. Beautiful. Actually,
very nice.
Thank you. Well done on the description, too, because I visualized it very well. So that's gorgeous. Wow, that's great. All right. We may be taking this question out, but I'm going to try anyway. What is a customer service pet peeve of yours when you're out there being the customer?
So when you say pet peeve, it's something that I don't like hearing or something that someone points out?
So you can tell, if you can't tell on the podcast, Andy has got to be like the coolest, smoothest, even-keeled dude I've ever talked to. So I don't think anything really gets him upset. And because I'm the exact 180 opposite of that. So what I'm talking about is when I walk into a store, give somebody the eye like, hey, I need some help, and they run away, I actually literally start running after them. You'll actually see me in a dead sprint in a Home Depot if somebody doesn't help me. So that's a pet peeve of mine.
It's something in the customer service process that maybe you think should be happening that just never does, or when it doesn't happen, it drives you crazy.
I don't really think I have one.
All right, there you go. This guy, man, I tell you what, I love his demeanor. I've already learned that, never get too high, never get too low.
He's the ideal customer,
and he is the ideal customer. Can we come work for you as handyman? All right. Last question. Give us a DIY or a contractor nightmare story. Death, dismemberment, fire, flood.
Unfortunately, this is the greatest and saddest story all wrapped up together. About 4 years ago, I did probably one of the largest remodeling projects of my career. It was just under a $4 million remodeling project. And it was a couple. She had sold a large law firm, and they had money was not an issue or an object, and they just wanted to do an amazing remodeling job. And he was driven on design. He was driven in the process, and he loved the process. And he loved when we used to have meetings. He would have a refrigerator on site that he would stock with beers with the guys and the designer, and we would walk around and talk. And he just loved the process. And she loved watching him do it. She didn't love the process. And while we were working on the project, he was determined. He found out he had brain cancer, and it was terminal. And I talked to a doctor that I had as a customer, and he said 95% of the people with brain cancer die within the first year. And he did pass away. And while he was sick, his wife had to be involved in the construction project, which he did not like making decisions. She did not like getting involved. So it was very difficult. We worked with them to complete it. And she pushed us in the end so that he could get in the home. So that was just heartbreaking. It was one of the greatest projects in my career, but unfortunately it was the saddest project all at the same time.
Wow.
Did he get to see it though?
He did, but unfortunately he was in a hospital bed in the media room. He couldn't walk the steps to get up on the second floor. The last time I saw him, he was in a hospital bed, and I literally had to pick him up so we could talk because he was laying down. Of course, I went to his funeral, and since then his wife's been a widow living on the property, and seems to be pretty happy and worked through it. But it was one of those stories that you just, you can't believe happened.
You can't. I'm telling you, man. Woo! I tell you, I was tearing up listening to that one.
Yeah,
That's got to be a hard environment, but well done. Well, good on you for doing that job and getting it done. But yeah, wow, it's a bittersweet moment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, Andy, thank you again for coming on. This is going to be great. If you didn't learn something about how to be cool when you're working, you did not pay attention to this podcast. And if you made it all the way to the end and you're listening to me now, you are one of the 10%ers, because most of the people are usually bailing out at minute 40, and now we're on minute 48. So if you're here at 48, thank you for making it. Go out there, make it a great day. Get up that mountaintop. Let's go see what success looks like for you. We're out of here.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy.